Or, you know, whatever you can find.
How come I'm not hearing anything on the headphones?
Jeff?
I mean, wouldn't I normally hear music?
Yeah. Jeff?
Yep.
Do you have anything in the headphones for Chandler?
Yeah.
He just had it down.
Check.
Oh.
That would be called analog. Yeah.
Gang. See, I don't even have to hold the mic. Can I get more, Jeff, can I get more mic?
Can you hear me?
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, a little more. Yeah, they're right there. Perfect.
Okay, I guess I'm a little bit, yeah, I'm there too.
You there? You good?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
This is gonna look weird because we're just like.
Yeah, I know. I'm like crossing my arms.
Okay, cool.
Do the Ellen thing, the one leg over.
Oh, like, hey.
Over. Right? One leg over.
Hey man, JQ, this is Chandler.
Yo!
And Free is again in Hawaii still.
He is. And he stole our table.
He stole our table. So
Free, I want my table back, man. I have nothing to tap my fingers on, dude. Come on.
Tapping our fingers here on our knees.
Yeah, it's not the same as the sound of wood, though.
It's gonna be like Ricky Bobby, like you won't be able to. You've seen what's it called? Not what the heck is the name of that movie? Talladega Nights. Yeah.
Yeah, Ricky Bobby. Yeah.
Ricky Bobby's like, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
It's like, don't put your hands down. Anyways, we got a great show for you guys today.
You know what? It was funny. I was commenting with someone earlier today that, as a matter of fact, it was a UPS driver. I was walking out of my dentist appointment.
Yep.
And we were kind of looking at each other, and we looked at the sky and said, "Wow, we're starting. We're going to go into that really nice weather mode.
Yeah.
You know, where we get down into that's my favorite time. Basically, what we have like around April.
Yeah.
And what we have into September, October.
It's like the perfect weather.
Absolutely.
So guys, if you guys are planning to come out here to Vegas, this is the time. And November 17th and 18th.
That's right. I was going to say.
I think November 17th considerably.
It gets into, I think if I remember from the weather patterns and stuff, I think it gets into like the mid to high 60s, low 70s. You know, it doesn't really start getting cold until I think like once we get into like beginning of December or so. But like right in my face compared to where we were last week.
Shout out to Mevo. So we've been using, if you guys are wondering, we like for our live streaming on YouTube. Shout out to our folks on YouTube who are watching us, by the way, and hopefully
they're growing.
I know. I hope so.
Yeah, grow. Tell your friends about us.
Hey Jeff, don't forget to put this on the Geeked Out website too, or Facebook profile.
Yep.
But so if you're watching us, you would think we have like 3 or 4 cameras in here doing.
Shh, you don't have to tell them the truth.
Oh man, I want to though. This is cool technology.
Oh, I know it's cool
Amazing
technology. Yeah,
So,
I came to you. I said, we got to look at this stuff. I mean,
I know. This
wow.
is a great investment because Mevo is a camera company. Obviously, they do good, cool technology, and it's just one camera. But it has like
one camera, but it has the capability of like 7 different. Basically, we call a wide shot of the 2 of us together, and then we could have a shot of just you, a shot of just me. We could have a shot of the dovetail.
Everything.
Really? Yeah,
and it grabs it, and you know, one of the cool things I noticed about this is that it'll lock in on your face, and if you move around, it'll follow.
Cool technology, and I think this is version 2.
I don't even know. Yep.
And I can't wait to see what version 3 is going to be.
Oh man.
I mean,
because all right. So the setup that we have right now, obviously you guys can't see it, but there's like it's small. It's like a little small camera,
Yeah.
but it has a battery pack that you can attach to it. So it's
it's about that tall,
yeah,
including the battery pack.
including the battery pack.
And it's about as big around as like if you go to a restaurant and it has a little like ketchup and mustard dispenser.
Oh yeah, like that.
It's about the size of
Yeah.
as round as that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
a little bit smaller, but still.
But it's awesome. I love it.
It completely portable. I mean, yeah, it's like I said, when I remember when I first talked to you and Ron about it, I said, guys, we really need to look at this. This is
When new technology comes up, he starts foaming at the mouth. Like,
I know he starts getting that squealy voice.
I love it. So, anyways, I know that's a great thing. And
waking up every morning, you
yeah.
can say I made it another day.
And as usual, like I pick up my phone, and with one eye closed, I look at flip through Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff.
The scrolls.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
saw that, right? Oh my!
Come on,
God. Man, those are like.
But they have not said who it's going to be.
Yeah.
I mean.
I don't think we'll see. I don't think we'll see a Super Scroll until we see a true MCU introduction to the Fantastic Four.
I don't know.
You never know.
I don't know.
I mean,
reading the article, they were saying it could be I forget the name of the scroll that ended up teaming up with. Oh gosh, it's where was it Baby Hulk came from?
Oh, Young Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so that character.
Yeah.
I know exactly. Hulkling.
Hulkling. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they were saying it might be that scroll.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they named off like 5 or 6 different characters. They named off 2 Super Scrolls, but then they said the likelihood of it being this in the continuity wasn't sure. But you know what I'm also excited about with this movie is the fact that they're going back, they're predating everything. So basically, what they're doing is I don't expect Captain America to show up in it, but they're basically coming after the Captain America First Avenger movie and Thor and all those other characters and the combination of the Avengers themselves. So this is
Oh yeah.
and
I don't doubt
it's gonna be, and we might get a really good idea what the heck is gonna happen come this May with Avengers number 4.
Oh my God. Is it May already? Like, oh God, that's not that.
We have to get past November 1st to get to May. Hint, hint.
What's that? Is that Captain Marvel? Is that when Captain Marvel? What's
No,
happening?
Captain Marvel starts. Captain Marvel comes out in March.
So what's on November 1st?
I didn't say November 1st. I simply said we have to get past November. Working on some cool surprises for that.
Awesome.
All I can say is bloop, 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 DC, bloop, 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 bloop. You never know, you know.
You never know. But yeah, no. I just personally, like, when I saw the 4 scrolls standing on the beach. I mean, they
weren't exactly sunbathing, yeah.
No. I mean, they were fully like clothed and they had.
Oh yeah.
But it was just so cool to see scrolls depicted how they were depicted, because that was the Chitauri being the scrolls of the Ultimate Universe. When they came out, I was like, that's cool and all, but I want to see the real scrolls. I want to see the Marvel 616
interaction that he had with the Skrull Kree War. I mean, you can't help but see Skrulls in this movie.
Yeah.
So
speaking of the Kree.
Oh, I just thought of the Super Skrull that we're talking about. That I said that Skrull is still maintained by Fox.
Yeah, but then
because that Skrull is part of, as we were saying, the Fantastic Four universe. So they can't be that Skrull because they don't have the rights for that Skrull yet. But then they mentioned
eventually
another Super Skrull.
Was that original? Not original Sin. Fear Itself. Fear Itself, I think, was the one that had, or was it? No. I'm sorry, I take it back. Not Fear Itself. It was Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion had all the different, it was God. I just remember because Jim Chung did the artwork for the book. So
yeah.
But anyways, either way, like I'm excited.
Well,
I'm excited.
You know, there was some other interesting news that I saw popping up today as well.
Current one.
Pardon?
The current one?
Current Superman.
Yeah.
He's now committed and he's involved with a Netflix series, The Witcher.
Okay.
And so there hasn't been any announcement of anything going on with Superman. DC, I just don't get the DC the DC movie people.
Like the
just
concept.
okay, great. You know, they did it, why can't we?
Yeah.
And just, okay, start fresh and move forward, but they just can't seem to do that. They're putting out great TV shows. I'll give them that. They're putting out great TV shows for Arrow this year.
With Batwoman.
With Batwoman coming into play and everything. So
that's not until what, December?
Something like that. Yeah.
It's not for a while, but they
the
really
new series starts in October. I want to say like mid-October. It's not going to involve the what's the team that travels back and forth.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Thank you. I couldn't figure that one out.
It happens.
It's not going to involve them, and obviously introduce Batgirl or Batwoman. Batwoman.
Yes.
So, but anyway,
which is played by Ruby Rose.
Yeah.
Oh God. I don't know. Okay, so when they announced that, I don't know why people actually was like, "Oh, this can't be." She played a badass in John Wick 2 as one of the assassins. She was great there. She's had some great roles. She was in the Meg recently, the Megalodon movie, the shark.
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
No, I haven't. But it's kind of like people aren't going to want to go on the beach anymore.
Yeah. But either way, she's had some great roles, and I don't see why she can't be, Batwoman.
I don't either.
She has the look for it too, because I think Batwoman is all like kind of just kind of like the Robin type,
Yeah, it's funny when I think of Batgirl. I think of who was the actress that played her in the original Batman series.
Oh.
First off, we all know the series was campy as it was.
Oh,
but,
yeah, of course.
She was just way too bubbly for me.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay.
Oh man, but
I have a hard time just picturing her hitting someone. It's like, pow!
I know, pow! I'm sorry. Last week, we got into the whole comic convention talk and kind of like all the surrounding cons in the U.S. and obviously there's a lot of international ones, but we kind of focused on the U.S. and what was going on. And we kind of touched on it a little bit. I mean, obviously you have Great American Comic Con coming up.
Mm-hmm.
November 17 and 18.
I can tell you if you happen to go to a particular website that sells inexpensive discounted tickets.
Groupon?
Oh, as a matter of fact, we just released a whole campaign on Groupon. So.
Oh, you guys got to jump on that. Yes. Jump on it, Groupon, Great American Comic Con.
We're talking 60% discount.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I mean, believe me, I was limping walking out of the meeting because I was sitting there going, "Oh wow, God, I still have to pay the bills, keep the electricity on." But anyway, no, it's looking forward to seeing how that interaction works.
So guys, real quick, Groupon, Great American Comic Con, 60% savings. Pick up your tickets now. Yep. It just goes until they're sold out. So
yep.
I'm not even going to ask how many tickets you have set up for that, but
well, we'll see how quickly we go.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so anyways, let's get back to it. So we talked briefly about the Great American Comic Con and obviously the people who watch the show or listen to the show know you as the comic guy that as Celestial Comics, doesn't win comics, Great American Comic Con, but. What I want to kind of dig into is established, but what made you say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and put together this Comic Con for the comic, like for the purist, for the real comic book people, and like what are your motivations? What just made you do it?
Well, okay, I guess what we need to do, I think I was like any other kid growing up. I read comics as a kid, and and got to a point where it's teenage years, and suddenly your priorities change when you become a teenager. You know, I started getting into sports. I was playing sports. You know, discovering girls, writing, kind of stopped reading them, and unfortunately, just kind of forgot about them from that point. And also, unfortunately, my mom threw out my old comics from the late '60s, early '70s, and stuff. But you know, it is what it is. When the first X-Men movie came out, Sharon and I, we went to the Texas station, and we went and enjoyed the movie, and it kind of, brought back a little bit. I enjoyed, Wolverine and everything, and as I was walking out of the theater, there was a local dealer who had a table down in the lobby, so I stopped and I started talking to him. Well, I can go through this whole thing, and I'm not going to bore everyone, but that was basically what got me back into comics. How much this could be, how much fun they were to read, and what ended up happening with me was that I started collecting comics again, but then I thought, how cool would it be to be able to get these things signed? And, my first convention, Mandalay Bay, I want to say it was around 2003.
Okay.
And among the guests that they had coming in was Brian Bendis. And I remember taking a stack of Bendis books, and I got them signed. And to me, that was a really cool thing to put their signature on the book. And so that's kind of what got me into getting stuff signed. And then I discovered CGC. And things just kind of started rolling from there. The end result is we started Desert Wind Comics right around that time. That was also when I met Stan. I'd seen him at a show a couple of years prior, but to actually meet him was when he came here to Las Vegas. It was the release of Spider-Man 3.
Oh wow!
Which was the Venom movie. And the end result was that was when I started my connection with Stan and his, basically started working with him and people associated with him. And, as far as Desert Wind, we just moved from there. And there was a show in Pittsburgh called the Pittsburgh Comic-Con, which I had heard of, and I thought it'd be really cool to go to that show. And then there was one in MegaCon. It just so happened that Sharon and I had bought a timeshare in Orlando from a friend of ours. And so we're like, well, since we have a timeshare in Orlando, we used our timeshare, we went and had a vacation, we went to a show, had a good time. That was back in the days when I was doing it as a fan. I was going table to table, getting stuff signed by different creators. And, that was when I was having a chance to meet these guys. I remember meeting Lin Wein for the first time. It was at Emerald City, and this was, I want to say, roughly 2008, 2009. And I remember walking up to him with probably about half a dozen. And I walked up to him and I asked him if he would sign the books, and he said, yeah, he'd love to. And we started talking and stuff, and I forget how the subject came up. The subject came up that I was going to get the books graded by CGC, and he says, well, I don't really believe to be read. And I kind of grinned, and I looked at him, and I pointed at the 181 he was signing, and I said, do you think that this book hasn't been read? Because it was in pretty tattered condition. And he kind of looks at it, and then he kind of looks at me, and he smiles. He says, it was pretty beat up. But he understood the point I was making. And I said to him, the thing is that people want to get these books signed, and they want to get them encapsulated so that they help protect the book.
Yeah.
And the fact that CGC's signature program is also there to protect you, the writer, or you, the creator. I can't tell you how many times I saw stuff being sold on eBay, and the question was, how legit were they?
Yeah.
So, like I said, that was the beginning of my relationship with Lin, and whether it was Lin Wein or whether it was John John Romita Jr., which was first time meeting him was at Chicago. And just, all these different creators that we were meeting, and I started building these relationships with these guys. Seeing them at one show and then another show, and pretty soon they started realizing that, okay, I'm not just the random one-off fan that would walk up to them. There was something a little different. I'd be bringing them different books at different points, and they started recognizing me from that viewpoint. They also, we would get into conversations and we'd talk about stuff, and we'd talk about, life in general. We'd talk about, the whole comic thing was just, it was a hobby. Getting stuff signed in 2007, 2008, 2009, while we were getting stuff done, at that time we were doing, I actually need to jump back a little bit, back when we officially went into doing the business, and that was a simple situation because Sharon, my wife, was across the country. How are we supposed to pay for our travel and everything else? She goes, "You're never going to sell anything that you get signed." That's just the way I was. I mean, these were my stuff. I was getting it signed. It was going into my collection. And that was when it planted the way to her all the time. I said, well, that was the day that you started this monster. Was when you said we needed to find a way to monetize it, to help offset the costs and everything. And doing that, reached out to people who I knew, collectors and stuff, and said, hey, would you, I'm going to be going to this show. You want to get signed? And they're like, yeah, cool, great. I'd like to get this signed, that signed, the whole bit. They didn't have to go. They didn't have to pay for the travel. They didn't have to pay for the hotel. They didn't have to pay to get into the show. I was paying all that. So, again, we came up with a modest fee for what our service was, and that's how that started. As we continued to go to more and more shows, in 2013, that was probably our busiest year, where I was on the road 39 weekends out of that year, and for the most part, you get to know the promoters, you get to know the people that work in the conventions, and that's how I ended up seeing what was working and what wasn't working. And I thought to myself, Comic Expo, which the promoter was a Dr. Charles Lee, who lived in Los Angeles but also had a place of residence here in Las Vegas. And I started working with him, helping him book his talent, because I had relationships with all these different. And so we started booking the talent for the show, and his first year, which I want to say, I believe was 2011, or either 2011 or 2012 was the first year, and actually did fairly successful for that year. I mean, he had like 8,000 or 9,000. Next year, we ended up booking more people, and unfortunately, he got bit by the media bug, as I call it.
So then he started getting.
What he did was he started. I had actually brought Lou Ferrigno in for free. That was a free situation.
Oh wow!
Well, what it was Lou and I had known each other from obviously the con circuit and everything. And at one point, Lou came up to me. When is that show going to be this year? And I told him the dates. He says, well, I'm going to be in Las Vegas, but I'm going to be done with that by Saturday. I would love to be able to come to your show, the Comic Expo show.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Lou, no, I'm not going to charge you anything. I mean, my airfare is already paid for, my hotel's already paid for. He says, just give me a table. Give me a signing booth.
Yeah.
I said, well, that's it. He goes, yeah. And it'll be a one-day appearance on Sunday. I said, he had already started working on some of the others, but he ended up getting like Linda Blair to come out. He ended up getting Giancarlo Esposito, who was from Breaking Bad, and also a new TV series at the time called Revolution. I'm trying to remember I think he was the 9th or 10th Doctor Who, Sylvester McCoy. So he ended up getting like 5 or 6 different celebrities. All this stuff happening. So this was all a learning experience for me as well. The problem I saw is that he had to pull money from one part of the budget in order to pay for the first class airfare that these celebrities are requiring, to pay for the encore, which was going to cost a lot more money, to have to pay for their handler coming in. So next thing you know, now not only, but you also now have their guarantees that you have to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the end result was I said to Charles, I said, where are you pulling this money from? And he says, well, I'm just going to pull it from the marketing budget. He says, you know, we had all the people from last year, you know, so the show did not do as well because it wasn't advertised on the radio, didn't have any TV spots at all. Basically, he was going with online marketing only, and it just didn't cut it. And the result was he ended up taking it. You know, he had to end up paying out some fees to the celebrities because they didn't make their guarantees. And that was kind of the end of that show because it just left a really bad taste in his mouth. Seeing what happens at the small shows that we were going to, seeing what was happening at the medium shows and the large shows, San Diego, New York, you know, seeing shows like MegaCon grow from what was seeing the different things that those shows were doing, and I started thinking and learning what would I do and what I wouldn't do. And that was basically, to me, what ended up creating the Great American Comic-Con, was what I saw happen to the Las Vegas Comic Expo and what I've seen happen to other shows. I didn't want to turn it into a media show. I didn't want to.
There's enough of those around.
Yeah, there's plenty of those around, and you know, I'm a comic guy, and to me, if you're going to have a Comic-Con, make it about comics. Mm-hmm. Don't make it about the celebrities and everything else. Now, it's a little different. If you have a celebrity, I'll give you a case in point. So if he's at a show, you have fans that are going to walk up and want to get something signed by them. They may not want to settle for just getting a picture from him. They may think, you know what would be really cool to get an actual comic book signed. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to one of the vendors. In a case like that, now you have a celebrity guest who's actually helping to push the sales for the vendors that are at the show. Mm-hmm. To me, that's a little more of the synergy that needs to happen. But when you're bringing in people that are doing, especially if they're charging a high enough fee that instead of people spending money with the comic vendors and buying stuff, they're now having to spend all their money with that celebrity because they want another $70, $80. So they just spent $150 with that celebrity. Whereas if you had another celebrity who, you know, is charging $30, $40, then you're not pulling the money off. It is to make a show work and be effective. You basically have a triangle effect. You are paying the money for the booth space. That's now allowing you to pay for the lights, and allowing you to pay for some of the expenses of bringing the guests in, who are the comic creators. Encourage the fans to spend money to buy the tickets, and there's your second source of income that's now allowing you to finish paying for the guests that you're bringing in, and hopefully most promoters don't get into this because they'd like to make a little bit of money. Now, there's a difference between making a little bit of money and making a boatload of money. When you look at some of these large shows and they're bringing in millions and millions and millions of money these shows are generating is just insane. But you have these smaller shows like East Coast Comic-Con. You know, if the promoter is able to make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, that pays his salary for the year. That allows him to concentrate like that to pay the bills. And you know what? The fans come out, they have a good time, they get their stuff signed, they get pictures with their favorite creators, they get a chance to listen to their favorite creators and panels and stuff, and that's what makes a comic show fun, is the fans being able to spend the time with their favorites, maybe hearing about what the creator did as far as creating the story ideas or the characters or stuff like that. that's what fans enjoy hearing. That's what they enjoy seeing is you know, I remember we did an event with John Romita Jr. here in Las Vegas in 2012. It was a charity event. And one of the aspects that made it very unique was that we were actually able to have it live. We were able to actually have it live on the internet while it was going on. And we had a particular, I want to say channel, so to speak, that we were able to cover it on. I had people placing orders for sketches from John, quick sketches. And so I would end up, my cell phone would ding, and I'd look at my cell phone, and I'd say, hey John, you know, Mary from Australia, and this is what made it truly unique and really, really cool for the fans, is that Mary in Australia was able to sit there on her computer screen and see John look in the camera and say, Mary could sit there while she's over in Australia and watch John draw the sketch. And
That's cool.
Then we simply made arrangements to mail it to her. And the response I got from people at that time said that was so an opportunity to be able to watch someone like a John Romita Jr. or a Jim Lee or whoever it may be draw right there at what they requested without them having to be standing in front of them wherever they were at.
That's cool.
And
That's definitely very cool.
yeah, that's really fun, is when you're able to create that kind of experience for fans and give them the opportunity to do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Yeah.
And and my father was an enabler, and I guess to a certain degree, that's me being an enabler, allowing people to do stuff that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Whether it's seeing that sketch getting drawn or just having that sketch books. The reason they send those silver books is because, you know what, they happen to be a school teacher in Israel, and they don't have time to go to New York Comic Con and get something signed by someone there.
Yeah.
So that's that chance. And, you know, while I will openly say you can't satisfy everyone all the time, but I can also tell you that it is amazing how many emails we get from people that will say thank you. I mean, like gift baskets at the end of the year, because they would be sending us books throughout the year, and they would send us a gift basket at the end of the year just saying, this is our way of thanking you for providing the service. And, you know, that's great affirmation.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know, sharing announcements from customers that they're willing to go out of their way and spend their money to simply show their appreciation for what we're doing for them.
You know, it's a great, he's an acquaintance. I knew him like back during my college days, so like early 90s, right? And I was like, what's up, man? He's like, oh, you know, I always come to these guys for my grading, and his name's Walt. I don't know if you're Filipino. Yeah, so I mean, like just the fact that he's coming up from the Bay Area to go through you guys to get stuff, that's a good testament to what you guys offer. So
yeah, you know, when we end up doing shows, like I said, when we're out for those shows, and I have to laugh because you ask them, you know, what are their plans for the show, and a lot of times one of the first things out of their mouth is the better chance of getting stuff signed for them. And, you know, I remember last year at San Diego, and, you know, if you ask Free this is one thing that I think blew Free's mind, being to New York with us. And we did as much business in the first 2 days of New York Comic Con than what we had done all the customers that were dropping books off so that we can get stuff signed, whether it was at the show or whether it was part of our Legends tour or a future show coming up. A great testament to show that they're willing to come out to a show because they would much rather hand us the books, boom, drop it on the table, and he says, I want all this signed. Like, okay, you know, and you know, while we don't have that many that do that, 2015, I think it was 14 or 15, and brand new customer, brand new, calls me up and wants to get all the books.
Wow.
It's like he had, he was a huge, oh gosh, I'm suddenly drawn Thief of Thieves.
I forgot.
God, why? I swear, I think
If Jeremy was here, he would be able to pull
I
that up
was
real
going to say,
quick.
my brain is like, I went to the dentist earlier today. Having this particular customer had probably 100 books from that series that he wanted signed. It was Robert, and then there was, I'm trying to remember who the other writer was on the book. There was a secondary writer on the book, and then you had Sean Martinborough, who is the artist, and I'd have to look it up. But we had, other than Kirkman, they weren't expecting to see a staff of 100. Actually, he actually brought me that long box. He didn't bring it to the show because he didn't want to drag it around the show. They're dropping some pretty good cash on that because each one of these guys is charging.
Yeah.
It's, kind of says something. I can also say proudly that there were a bunch of other people that were, those guys, not doing it anymore. They got out. For whatever the reason. Ironically, there's been others who have now stepped in and started their way. So Sharon and I were one of the few that actually took in what we call raw customers, meaning people who would show up at the show because we were really so they would maybe set up something where someone would meet them, but that arrangement would be done in advance. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And, well, can I get this book witnessed by that artist? And we're like, yeah. And our witness would walk over and get it signed. They'd come over, they'd go. And, since then, there have been a couple of other companies that have started up similar services. They don't cover as many shows that we have. How many of these books are what we call multi-sig books? I was, talking to a customer on the phone, on my way over here, and he's going, I've got a Hulk 181. I'd like to get. It's no problem for us.
Yeah.
Not everyone is fortunate enough to be able to say that.
True.
But at the same time, Sharon and I we start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we don't get. We're working our asses off. Sharon, she works a day job. I have income that comes in from previous businesses that helps, take care of the bills. And then we work the Desert Wind signing business in the evenings. During the daytime, it's like I'm here today, taking care of the store. I got a phone call. I remember a phone call I got from T-Mobile, my mobile provider. I think we can get you in a better plan. I said, really? I said, so out of curiosity, have you looked up what plan I'm on? And he says, well, no, I haven't done that yet, but let me take a quick look at that. And I'm like, okay. Well, I see that you're on our top plan. I said, just out of curiosity, how many minutes do I average in a month? He goes, well, sir, you actually average 5,000 to 6,000 minutes on your top plan. He goes, no, sir, for you, you're in the
right there.
plan. You're in the plan that we need you to be in. I said, okay, I just want to make sure because you called up and said that you wanted to make sure that you were going to. I was having fun with the guy. I was needling a little bit because I'm like, dude, really, do your homework before you make that phone call and say, I got a better deal for you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the sound on his voice, and you do the math on that, and that comes out to, I'm like on the phone constantly.
Yeah.
For like 3-4 hours a day, solid.
Yeah.
When you're getting phone calls and you're taking care of emails and everything else, and there are some days it just gets crazy. And so, but getting back to what I was saying is a lot of blood, sweat, and very much tears into this business. And I say tears because we lost Marie Severin, and
oh wow, really?
Yes.
I didn't even hear about that.
Yes, we lost Marie Severin, and we lost Gary Friedrich.
Wow.
They both passed a really nice piece about them both on his Facebook page, and I didn't know this, but he and Gary were actually very good friends. They grew up. I remember meeting Gary. I would say probably 7-8 years ago, and if I remember, it was like the Pittsburgh show or something. It never occurred to me that he did too, and so I was reading this article written by Roy, and he was talking about how Gary suffered from a serious hearing. Helped me understand why he fell away from the convention scene, because honestly, it can get overwhelming.
Yeah.
There are times I can be at a show and I start getting a little overwhelmed with, as great as technology is today, there's still, the human ear is an amazing part of our anatomy and what it can, and so there are limitations to wearing hearing aids that when you get into environments such as a convention where you have all this noise coming
people.
Yeah, and they're talking to you, and you don't realize that they're talking to you. Suddenly, you feel a tap on the shoulder. It's like, hey, I was talking to you. Well, I'm sorry. So back to the whole thing with Gary is that he ended up he had his hearing loss, and also he just reading this, that was a real touching piece. Marie Severin, again, helped me have a better understanding of who these people were back years ago. I mean, yes, I know Marie from the work that she did about her, and to a certain degree, how she dealt with the marble bullpen.
Yeah.
I actually had a with Marie, and this is probably about 7-8 years ago, and I reached out to someone that I'd gotten a line on that they were friends with her, and so I told them, and so I did the crazy thing, picked up the phone, and I called the phone number, and she answered, and I started talking to her. Now these friends of hers actually told her a little bit before I called, just to give her an update as they're giving. So we sat there and we had this really nice conversation. Now, I wasn't aware that she was in a facility at the time.
Wow.
And I'll explain that in a second. So I had actually set up with her. Basically, I was in the process of getting that all set up a date and everything with her that I was going to go see her. And I ended up getting a phone call from someone. We don't want to do this. First off, you've got some people pissed off at you. I go, why? What did I do? And they're like, well, just the fact that you want to sign with her. And I'm not going to get into names or anything, because there was a particular person who is a art dealer who was tied into Marie, and he basically was saying, you are taking advantage of an older woman, blah 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 blah. How dare you? Blah 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 blah. I don't want to create this kind of havoc.
Yeah.
But the sad part about it is ultimately, it was all personal on this other person's side. They didn't want me. Instead of giving fans an opportunity to get stuff signed by a woman that has not been in the public eye for many years, and making fans happy, this particular art rep wanted to make sure signature market. But then I crack up because I go, well, it's interesting. You have a disdain for the signature market, yet you sell artwork.
Yeah.
So how are you any different than any? Oh, how dare you would say that I'm them for their signatures? It would be different if we were having them sign stuff without them being aware of what we were doing. That I absolutely agree with would be, a bad thing, a negative. The fee that the individual was very happy with. Well, here was the part, and this is why I elected to back down. What I didn't know is that she was in a facility for Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
And now, if someone wants to sit there and say, oh, well, you know, you don't understand, my comment is, BS, I do. I lost my grandmother on my mother's side to Alzheimer's, and I lost my father to Alzheimer's. And that was part of the reason why I backed down, is because I realized, without me having all that information in the beginning, that would have completely changed everything.
Yeah.
But here again, where I was talking about the tears that I lost, some people that we have come to know very well, whether it's Lynn Lean or whether it's Herb Trempe.
Yeah, because I mean, you guys have been in the business. I mean, relatively such a short time, and in that short time, you've built all these great relations, and these people move on, and it's like losing a family member.
It is.
So,
I can still remember. I remember very well that day when I got the phone call MegaCon, and Herb was at the East Coast Comic Con that weekend, which was the same weekend as MegaCon. Otherwise, we would have been up there.
Yeah.
And Patricia called me and left a message on my phone, and she says, "I wanted you guys to hear it from me first before you heard it anywhere else, because you guys are like family to us."
Yeah.
And I was devastated. Sharon was times where, and unfortunately, that's kind of that's the unfortunate part of what we do, is because we create. Because we have, or we create these relationships. A lot of them are advanced in their age.
Yeah.
And so it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. Just some of them caught us completely by surprise, such as Herb. No one would have imagined. He had just taken a jog. He'd just gone jogging. And he was at home. He had just finished his jog. He was sitting on his favorite bench outside of his house.
Yeah.
And boom, gone. And that's where the tears come from. And
it's not always been. I mean, and I hate to rush you through this because we're actually 6 minutes over now.
Uh-huh.
So, but I mean, obviously the blood, sweat, and tears, and I totally get that, because when you're growing a business, when you're growing, no pain, no gain, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I mean,
let me just add one real quick thing, and that is, I think it allows you to see the difference between the people, because you have some people that are in this, who've made this business an important part of our lives.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
So while yes, it is business to us, we are very personally invested in this business industry.
Yeah.
Where
and
some people are just in it for.
What's up? A little bit before we sign off for the day. So doing the whole signature, like getting the signatures and getting witness and all that stuff. What would be like the most interesting, or one of the few interesting books that you've seen, and you look at it and you're like, wow, this is a crazy book. Like, you know what I mean?
I'd have to say my favorites are like some of the first books that creatives work on.
Like some like the no-name stuff that nobody realized.
The very first issue that Joe Giella worked on, or the very first issue that Gene Colan worked on, or whoever the creator is that we're signing with. To me, there was a lot of fun behind that, because, like in the case of Joe Giella, I remember when I'd forgotten all about this. I said, I researched it, and I wanted to find what your first professional work was. And he looked at me, he says, thank you. He says, or whatever that Joe's known to work on. He says, I've never had anyone walk up with that book. And it was an obscure book that was put out by Charlton, and he drew. And that to me is what's fun, because again, you're finding obscure stuff.
Which was
Coyote 12.
Oh wow, Coyote. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, that was Todd's first work.
Wow.
And we see those all the time now.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time we got one in, and I put it in front of Todd, and Todd's kind of like, it makes these guys, these creators, realize that some of these fans really care, that they're willing to go through the effort to find that information.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, I've actually had one creator who refused to sign it because it says it's the worst. It was, gosh, I don't know. Well, I'll give you an example. Howard Chaykin hates signing Star Wars.
Oh wow.
Now he enjoys it from the viewpoint that it's the worst work I ever did. It's the worst work I've ever did. I was terrible at that time.
I can totally understand.
Yeah, it's funny when you run across situations like that because it's like now you see these guys going,
it's those really unique pieces that come out that you like.
Real quick, one about Stan that cracks me up is there was a I forget the title, but it's a picture of Stan in an actual photo cover of Stan, a cowboy character. And I remember when that came into us for the first time, and Stan was like, "Wow, this is cool. Who found this?" And he got this. And so again, it's neat to put surprises on the creators' faces, and at the same time, you're doing something for the fan that they love.
Yeah, definitely cool. One last question before we sign off here, and so you get all these like these really unique pieces, right? What about the international, like for example, right? Tony DeZuniga, Filipino artist, helped create what's his name? What if you get like not just necessarily Tony, but like what if you had artwork from or like a book from a Filipino artist? Or any like an Italian artist, like from Italy, and you got that graded. Okay, let's just take Tony for example. If Tony was still alive, he did a lot of work in the Philippines, doing like the Filipino comics and stuff like that, right? What if somebody had one of those books? If Tony was still alive, and said, "Hey, can you get Tony to witness this?" And then if he brought it to CGC, what would the process be like?
I can't honestly say that CGC has ever turned away a book saying, we can't grade this because we know nothing about it.
Yeah.
That's on them to find out the information. I mean, the fact is, if it's a legitimate book that's been paid, they are going to have to find the information on that book to do it. Like I said, I've never had anything turned away from them saying that we can't grade this because we don't know it. They've turned work away because, as an example, they say this book is too brittle. Stuff where we go to remove it from the bag and the board, and it starts crumbling in the bag, and it's like, whoa, okay, we're going to put this back and say, we'll contact the customer and say, we can't get this thing signed because the customer learned years, and the oxidation process is more than set in, and this thing is literally crumbling in the bag.
That's crazy.
So CGC has rejected stuff like that simply because there's no way for them to grade it without destroying the book.
15 minutes over. We've been having a great time, and I really appreciate you talking about like your growth in the industry and all that. It's just interesting to hear from your peers about what goes on in their lives and
in this business. We've definitely taken a different path, and from multi-functions also. I mean, again, from the signing and grading aspect to the store aspect. I'm hoping next week store owner who will be joining us, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to discuss what the client base is, not the client base, the fan base.
Yeah.
What the fan base is on one side, the west side where Celestial's at, and the east side where this store.
That would be cool. That'd be definitely cool.
Yeah. So
with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Shout out to our folks on Facebook Live and YouTube, definitely YouTube Live, that have tuned in. And as always, this is our show. As always, 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Wednesdays, right here on Dovetail Radio. We are out. Peace.
sorry about